Writers of the New York Times 1619 Project argue that the birth of America is not July 4th, 1776, but rather August 1619, when a ship carrying 20 to 30 Africans arrived at Port Comfort in the British colony of Virginia. The 1619 Project won a Pulitzer and has received much praise from those on the political left who claim that this revisionist history gets it right. Critics of the project argue that seeing slavery as a uniquely American institution and concluding that slavery rather than freedom defines the history of the United States, among other claims, represent flawed historical interpretation. It is essential to expose the gruesome facts of slavery in America, but a fair-minded approach using evidence-based research is essential in today's America when citizens are being told that the nation is more or less evil on the issue of race. The 1619 Project had 34 contributors. The overwhelming majority of the contributors were journalists rather than scholars. 4 of them were historians who had no expertise in the history of slavery. New York Times reporter Nicole Hannah-Jones was the key contributor and brainchild of the project. In the lead inaugural essay, Hannah-Jones writes that, quote, anti-Black racism runs in the very DNA of this country, end of quote, and that white America constructed, quote, a savagely enforced system of racial apartheid that excluded Black people almost entirely from mainstream American life, a system so grotesque that Nazi Germany would later take inspiration from it for its own racist policies, end of quote. However, there are some inconvenient facts that Hannah-Jones and other activists leave out. Most African slaves that arrived in the Western Hemisphere were people captured and sold into slavery by other Africans. The atrocities that African people inflicted on each other was horrific. Even African American novelist and activist Alice Walker asked, quote, who would want to know via a blow-by-blow account how African chiefs deliberately set out to capture Africans from neighboring tribes, to provoke wars of conquest in order to capture for the slave trade people, men, women, children who belonged to Africa, end of quote. Activists prefer to believe that African Americans were all kidnapped unawares by evil white men. Both European buyers and African sellers were partners in the business of global slavery. The argument that slavery is uniquely American institution lacks supportive evidence. Challenging the historical accuracy of the 1619 Project, author Mary Grabar writes, yes, people need to learn about slavery, but they need to learn about it in its historical context as a global, transracial, transhistorical phenomenon. Sadly, slavery continued into the 20th century in various regions of the world. Slavery was legal in Yemen and Saudi Arabia until 1962. Today, Chinese communists keep over 1 million Muslim Uyghurs in forced labor camps. It is essential to learn lessons from the ugly facts of slavery in America, but let us also consider the historical context of a phenomenon that inflicted all regions of the world. Thank you.